an alert day, not the kind where, again, Kevin mentioned this wasn't the threat of tornadoes or something perhaps to that degree, but the kind of weather with flash flooding, downpours that could still create some risks and dangers in their own right as we're moving around different parts of wave country. Appreciate now that we have our folks on the stream from Facebook, Twitch, X, YouTube, joining us just now at 8:40. It's been kind of an interesting fusion with Wave Now and Wave Weather Now to start with just those weather updates, which, by the way, when Kevin is back and, have to had dinner and take a break. Wave News at 11. We're not only gonna have Kevin break down what's happened tonight, looking ahead to the weekend, but of course all of the investigating and reporting that our team has been doing throughout this particular Thursday. So now I'm going to move ahead to another story we've been paying close attention to, and this has to do again with what seems like has been a track in data, and I'm going to pull a report from our Logan Perone when I'm able to get to wave3.com so you can just see the numbers that he looked into last night. But this has to do specifically with this was an arrest in a traffic stop, and this helped police months ago actually find one of three suspects wanted in a double shooting. This happened at California Park earlier this year, where a 14-year-old was killed. And we have learned now that one of those suspects, 19-year-old Sean Grady, arrested this week facing assault and murder charges. Now, what's perhaps the troubling coincidence or common point is the fact that we've heard now in a recent reporting of California and in this week in particular, what feels like a cluster of shootings involving young boys and them being the victims and involved in these crimes is something police are looking into as well. And so Arlena Noakes spent some time digging into this case today, and she wanted to share and get a closer look at what led police to finding the suspect, and we're going to share that report for you right here.
This affidavit may have seemed straightforward in April. Sean Grady arrested in New Albany on gun and drug charges. Police pulled over the car he was in, driven by a kid. The smell of marijuana triggered a search and this find. 2 loaded magazines, 9mm bullets strewn throughout the car, and at least 4 handguns. Police found one of those guns has a little history. A Glock 19 converted to fully automatic belonging to Grady and confirmed to have been involved in a shooting right here in California Park.
A bullet has no name, but it always has a victim.
In this case, that was a 14-year-old boy killed. Police say Grady was one of 3 co-defendants who shot him multiple times.
This is just very troubling to me, very, very troubling.
For reasons that simply aren't clear, after 45 minutes of playing basketball together, the defendants pulled out guns and began shooting, chasing the victims that ran away. It's all captured on cameras around the park. This arrest only adds to a jarring recent string of violent crime. Guns and drugs in the hands of kids, and far too many deaths.
If we don't get these guns out of the hands of young people, we will continue to see life destroyed, devastation, and young people not reaching their full potential.
And so that was Arlena Noakes with that update. And I just wanted to show you, by the way, we've been really diving into the issue and just seeing all the different common points. This is a report that I mentioned. This is from Logan Perone, his dive into some numbers from the gun violence dashboard. You can see where I'm highlighting. That's a resource you can always look up online. But when Logan was looking at this relative to what's involving victims of this group with gun violence, the groups of people between ages of 18 and 44 accounted for the bulk of the Louisville's non-fatal shootings. So we've noticed something this summer. In just over 3 weeks, 17 kids have been hurt in shootings, 4 have been killed. And this is what has warranted these kind of condemnations and calls for change from groups like Community Connections, of course. And as they're sort of discussing next steps for policy action items on things that they can change to really cater to young people and getting them out of these situations will be something we'll be following up with as we go, not just through the summer, but short, mid, and long term. So those are just a couple of the stories that we're really, sinking into or putting our resources into for you here at the Wave News Newsroom, looking into that. So stick with us, because after the break, I'm going to, play another part of what many of you have been tuning in to check in on is sort of the courtroom video from inside both of the murder trials involving Crystal Rogers' disappearance. So stick with us after the break. I want to guide you to where you can find all that video for yourself and play a portion of that testimony we heard in Steve Lawson's trial, kind of as a thing we'll do over the course of the next days and weeks ahead. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. Be right back on Wave Extra on this Thursday evening. All right, everyone, welcome back. 8:47 on tonight's edition of Wave Extra. Jose Sosaya here in the Wave Now studio. What I wanted to help, or at least set up for everyone in case they were wanting to look at this content, this video for themselves. Again, this is all the days and hours of courtroom video that were given to us as copies by Nelson County. But these are from inside of the trial, those court cameras for Stephen Lawson's trial and Brooks Houck and Joseph Lawson's trial as it relates to Crystal Rogers' disappearance. What I wanted to play for you. And again, remind you, you can find all this is if you go to the menu on the wave3.com app, you can go to news. There's a tab right here at the very top under this news main tab. You can click on it. It's Crystal Rogers. And in there, you'll see as you scroll just a little bit down, it's going to say watch the full trial of either Stephen Lawson or the joint trial of Brooks Houck and Joseph Lawson. And so what I want to play for you is a portion of some of the testimony that was heard by the jury and just a snippet of it, which of course you can always watch at your own speed on wave3.com. But just we know there have been some viewers interested in wanting to interact and engage with all this video that we've now received, and you can, step inside the courtroom for yourself. So I'm going to play a little bit of this testimony from you, and who you're about to hear is Detective John Snow, a prosecution witness brought to offer testimony in Stephen Lawson's trial. So we're going to play for you a little bit of that for you right now. Well, it seems I was trying to make sure the video would play out, but it may just be something that feeds through another system. So I might have to try that again. So apologies, folks. Sometimes the technology, you think it's going to cooperate, and that is not quite the case. So just as a reminder that we do have this, that you can watch it. I'll see if looking ahead to tomorrow, if the audio is something I can translate between our different sources. We've got a bunch of different computers here in the studio, just so you all know. But again, you can always come watch the full videos for both trials on the wave3.com website. So what we're going to do right now is part of a segment we've just started. It's called What's Good? And this is our first report from our Dawn G. If you're familiar with a story that about Little League, I believe, I'm checking in here, it's about Little League. The good news of Southwest Louisville when they had beaten a team from Japan back in 2002, and it seemed like that excitement because they'd won, it was going to last forever. Yes, and just checking in there. Just going through some notes, of course. Why don't we just play from what Dawn had up there, as I'm going to take out this source right here. This is the report from Dawn G.
If you start to rebuild it,
so it's kind of like a restart, it's like a renaissance where everything's kind of restarted again.
they will come.
Over the course of 4 or 5 years, it's kind of had a rebirth, and the community has just dug in, wholeheartedly.
Valley Sports American Little League, home of the 2002 Little League World Champions in Southwest Louisville, had seen better days.
The structures, they were riddled with graffiti. They probably hadn't been painted in years. It was just very dull, not inviting. It's not an environment that which you bring your kid up here that you'd be excited about. There was busted windows in some of the press boxes, and squirrels had just taken it over.
It looked like it had struck out.
And this was a pillar in the South End forever, for a long time. I grew up playing here. My family grew up playing here. So my childhood, my core memories, so many of them happened here.
Now, Matt Payton, former Valley sports player, now firefighter and father, was at bat and agreed to take on the role of president of the league, October 2020, right in the middle of COVID.
And my immediate response was, no way. The next day I said, hey, I'm going to do it. None of this would have been able to get accomplished without the help of everybody around here. This whole area just stepped up and just, stepped up to the plate.
It wasn't just the community painting, building, and buffing that made it shine. The kids have knocked it out of the park, too.
Our first state champion last year in coach pitch, first state champion we've probably had as a league, and I couldn't tell you the last time. Also had a 12-year-old softball team this year win district, and they competed at state. And as of 2 years ago, we didn't even have softball. Now we got an 11 and 12 team that has, for the first time since 2010, won district.
The team will now take a swing at the state tournament. But Peyton knows it's about more than just the win.
It's not just the game. It's learning how to be a good person when they get done playing the game. It's not necessarily about your kid becoming the best baseball player or the best softball player. It's about the attributes you can learn that the game teaches.
And who we get to talk baseball with is Logan Perone right here, just in case you guys, everyone watching, knew that we both like to talk baseball quite a lot. So it's great to see not only, it's good news, it's a sport we love, helping a great team and part of the community that, they all rally behind. It's a wonderful story. Can't wait to see them, feel like they can really get to use all of that field, Logan. And obviously baseball season won't be there for quite a while for the kids. We know what seasons, fall, winter, spring sports, baseball. Not the season if you remember that playing in middle school and high school, but it'll be exciting when Little League season comes back for them too.
So for the folks of you at home that don't know, I'm actually from Pennsylvania. So
Yes.
the Little League World Series is a big thing. I'm from quite a few hours away from Williamsport, but still a big thing. So, just to see them have that field again and have that access, I still play
It's
ball in the
special.
men's league here, and I know how important, the field is and having access to a field. So it's nice that we were able to share that
Yes.
good news.
So Logan's working on a story that you're going to kind of, get his focused report tonight on Wave News at 11. This has to do with renters, Logan. And in fact, as I understand it, we're going to see some images that you were able to collect for us tonight that actually, make quite a statement against these renters landlords, but what you wanted to walk us through tonight is sort of an interesting resource that would answer some questions that they might have. So as I switch over to now that I have a source that I'm actually operating and like I'm not fumbling through the notes because of a technical error, hoping to get some audio involved, why don't we switch over to this, and Logan can kind of walk us through what this is. Maybe you've never heard of this before, but it might be a very handy tool in case you ever need it.
Yeah, folks. So what you're looking at right now is the Tenants' Rights Manual. This is provided to us by the awesome folks over at the Legal Aid Society here in Louisville. So today we were actually down in Meade County. There were renters down there that they were upset with their landlord, their property management company. They said that the landlord hadn't done enough to address their concerns, fix some things that were wrong. And I wanted to get as many eyes on this, so I figured pop into the Wave Now studio and show you all this. For our renters at home that are watching, the Tenants' Rights Manual kind of is your, I'd say this is what you want when you're in the driver's seat, before you get behind the wheel of renting an apartment or renting any sort of home. This is going to be your
Call it
best
a very good
friend.
Process manual right
Yes,
there.
I mean, like, let's just look at the table of contents. It has everything from moving into the dwelling when you're living in your space, moving out, eviction, things like that. Now, the whole reason we thought this was a good story these days is we've had a lot of you, at least a few of you, call in, but for us, it seems like a lot when you're hearing at least once a week.
Well,
air conditioning.
that's why we're there as the
Yeah.
resource, and given when we're talking, it's funny you come in, Logan, and talk about, when the heat is not working, in this case, the AC is not working, and you're talking temperatures hitting the 90s where we live in this part of the country. It's not a pleasant feeling when you
Yes.
can't have access to stay cool.
I was going to say, it even says, so there's actually a process, especially here in Jefferson County. Now, that's one thing that we get into the report, that the laws do vary by county and or in some cases municipality. So here in Jefferson County, we have,
And worth disclosing, this applies
Yes.
with Legal Aid Society's resource. Like, just to clarify, this is relatively specific to Jefferson County.
yes, it's relatively specific to Jefferson County, but it does have some just good general advice for renters, document everything, things like that. So the one portion that I wanted to look at here was right here on page 5. So this is page 4 into page 5. It kind of talks about maintenance and repairs here. So, there are some things that landlords are obligated to. Again, those are landlords that are following this specific law that is optional. But it says here, again, heat, electricity, reasonable amount of hot water. Those are things that landlords have to offer. You cannot be a landlord or a tenant and not have those things. And what's noticeable here is air conditioning, not an essential service. And again, we talked about that today with the folks over at Legal Aid Service. Yes, while that might seem crazy, it is not a requirement for air conditioning to be provided to you as a tenant. However, it's that second sentence. If it's already provided, say you have central air and it goes out, the landlord must keep it in good working order. So again, just things like this.
And if there's a zoom in tool, if you want to try and use that, Logan, just so we can really highlight, and you can scroll further down, just so it lands higher up on the screen, you can see it right there.
Yes,
and you
air
can highlight
conditioning is
that.
not an essential service, folks. But again, if you have central air, if there is an issue with it, your landlord has to keep that in good working order. Now, again, for our folks here in Jefferson County, this is something very important. I've had friends that have had issues with their management companies, their property owners, their landlords. This is a good tool, and I'm going to just fast forward and scroll down all the way to the bottom. There are these forms. So say you get denied an essential service, you can file a form that's already prefabricated for you to just say, hey, this is what's wrong, this is what you're not providing me. Same deal with, here's the maintenance obligations, repair and deduct, which is actually in Jefferson County, there is an option for you to make the repair yourself if you have the money to do so, and deduct it for up to half your rent. So again, this is one of the most helpful tools when I found out about it today, just doing my research for the story. As someone who rents, I just want to say I love my landlord, by the way. I love my property company.
Well, and not to put you or them on the
Yeah.
spot, but it's just, as worth disclosing, and we're just, sharing what it takes to make sure you're looking at all these kinds of resources, Logan. It's, for someone who may have been lost in knowing where to go, at the very least, we want to help guide you to where you might find those answers. We don't know all the answers, but it's good to, point people in a direction where, and even if something they have a question about what's in the manual, heck, the Legal Aid Society is there to answer those questions should you have them.
I was going to say the phone numbers. The
Right
phone
there,
numbers
contact
right there.
and the website if you need it.
So, and this will be linked with the story once I have the final report together on wave3.com. But again, I just wanted to get as many eyes on this as we could, because for me, as someone who rents, and again, I told the folks at Legal Aid Society today, I'm fortunate. I've never had a major issue other than ones that I've caused. So, the one time where I lost my, I'm going to tell y'all a story, folks, real quick.
All right, why don't we just pull? This is story time then for
This is a
Logan.
good
as
story
we're
time
just
for you guys to
evolving.
enjoy
And then
Wave
we're just
Extra.
going to call this kind of a good segue into wrapping up our night. But the floor is yours.
When I
Logan.
first moved to Louisville, Jose, I was hanging one of those shower caddies. Hung it up
on
over-
the top of the shower head.
over the top of the shower head, folks.
Okay.
And I really thought, like, oh, that thing's going to stay. Walk into my living room, 20 minutes later, I hear a kaboom, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, what was that? Turns out I ripped the pipe in half inside the, yeah, don't look at me like that.
Well,
It
I'm
ripped
just
it in half
but
inside
why-
the
why-
wall.
No, it's then the pipe. The pipe was obviously there was a problem with that pipe before you had put the caddy, or was the caddy just that?
I put a lot of stuff on it,
Okay.
guys. I got to keep what's left of my hair, looking good. Because, I'm young. I got to keep it looking
are
good.
young.
But again, I was freaking out. And again, luckily I didn't have the issue, but oh my gosh, I can't imagine having gone through that and, then my landlord saying, hey, we're not going to help you, or hey, we're going to charge you, or hey, we're going to come in. I'm glad I know it now. Luckily I didn't need it then, but I'm glad to know, like, if something like that were to happen and I would end up having issues with the landlord, the tenant's right manual, which I'm looking at here, again, just a great resource to have.
Absolutely. And so, like Logan said, whenever we find these resources, always link them so you can, use them for as you will need them. But we'll link that stuff to wave3.com. Now that I'm thinking out loud, Logan, I wish I'm going to have to double check what the audio is like as a playback, because normally there's video I could play for you all to see what's, what we want to discuss in our stories and reporting. Wave3.com is still an excellent tool. I'm just trying to figure out the language of why the audio was not being fed from that source to the other. Maybe what I have to do is, you know what it was? It's a button I'm staring at the middle at right now
We're all
because
learning
I'm
new
feeding
things,
it from
folks.
the source. I know what the
this is what
source
we do on a daily basis.
So, all right. So I promise then for tomorrow, folks, chronologically wanted to play this bit of testimony from both of the trials because we know that's something you're interested in. But now I know I have to make sure I have to hit the right source button to actually make sure you hear something as you're tuning in with us. All right. Logan, I think we're going to take a quick break before, or a quick, let's call it dinner break before we get ready to go
Burger
do
Week,
Wave News at
folks.
11. That's right. All right, appreciate it, everybody. As a reminder, you can always connect with us on all our different social media channels. We're on the Wave Now app on your smart devices, your Roku, your Fire Stick TV, all the different conventional ways, online, on the app, on TV. We're going to take that break. Appreciate you, as always, joining us for Wave Extra. You all take care. Looking forward to the weekend. Stay dry out there. We'll see you.